Alright, yo, what's going on YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we have something a little bit different for you guys. We don't have a gameplay for today. We are going through all of my settings. We are going through controller settings, graphics settings, audio. We're going through it all. So a lot of people have asked me what my settings are, and this video is for you guys. I'll also show you my NVIDIA filters if you're on PC, and if you have an NVIDIA graphics card, you can use NVIDIA filters, which makes your game look a lot better. You can increase the sharpness, increase the HDR toning and all that stuff. Makes the game a lot more visible so you can see players better in dark corners. And also I'll show you the settings that don't really lower your FPS that much. All right, man, so to start it off, let's go through this general tab. So for starters, for the field of view, I rock 120 field of view. I know a lot of controller players on PC, they like to use 110 to 112, but for me, 120, it feels good, it looks good, so that's what I use. And then going to the brightness, I rock 60% brightness just to make it a little bit more bright so I can see people in dark areas. The HUD, I use at 100. Skip introduction movie, I have that enabled because I kind of hate whenever I load up Warzone and there's some dumb intro that I don't really care about, so I just turn that on so I don't have to deal with all that. The tooltips I turn off. Now colorblind mode, I do use colorblind setting. I use the Deuteranopia, however you say that, that's the colorblind setting I use, and also the colorblind target, I use both. And now this is a really important setting. Make sure that you have this on. For your minimap shape, make sure that you set that to square, because as you can see in the picture, if you have it set to square, you can see a lot more of the minimap. So if yours is on circle, make sure you switch that over to square. And this is a setting that they just recently added, I'm pretty sure, which is the kill feed time on screen. You can set it where the kill feed is on your screen for a longer amount of time. I just have it set to default because I don't really care. And then now also another setting, the dismemberment and gore effects, I have that disabled. I've heard that it can help your FPS a little bit, so I just have it disabled. Doesn't really need to be enabled. I don't really care too much about, you know, having a super realistic, violent game. And then for the overlay on your screen, I do use the FPS counter, the server latency, and the GPU temperature. Those are the only three things that I show up on the top right of my screen. It helps, you know, knowing what FPS you're getting and if your GPU is running too hot, and also if you're getting, you know, high ping or lagging or whatever. All right, man, so moving on over to the graphics setting. This is a really important setting. If you want pretty good FPS, I have a fairly decent PC. If you have a medium to low end PC, I would definitely recommend that you use these settings that I'm using. So for starters, I run full screen borderless because I have a dual monitor setup. So full screen borderless, it allows me to go from Modern Warfare to my other monitor, to change OBS, to do anything that I want to on my second monitor. So that's why I run borderless. If you're rocking a single monitor, I would definitely consider changing it to full screen because I've heard that that can help with FPS a little bit, but I don't really notice too much of a drop in FPS whenever I use borderless. So that's what I use. And now for my graphics card, I am rocking an RTX 3070. So that's the graphics card that I'm using if you're curious. For the resolution, make sure that you always have this set to 100. This is the most important resolution to run, unless you're running 1440p. And if you have a 1440p monitor, whenever you set it to 100, it will actually be 1440p instead of 1080. I use a 1080 monitor, which I'm sure most of you, that's what you use as well. And then for the VSync, I have VSync disabled. I've heard everyone say disable this, so that's what I have. Don't really know what it does, but I have it disabled. A custom frame rate, I have mine custom because I have it set to cap at 250 in game, and then I have it set to cap at 60 FPS in the menus. I would recommend that you do this because if you're in the menus and you have it uncapped, it can use a little bit more processing power in your GPU and it can heat it up a little bit more than it needs to. So I would cap it at 60 in the menu and then cap it at like 250 in the game, unless you're getting more than 250 FPS. And if you're getting more than 250 FPS in Warzone, then hey, I'm jealous. NVIDIA highlights, I have that disabled. The NVIDIA reflex low latency, I have that set to enabled plus boost. This reduces latency in the game, so I definitely recommend you use that. And then now for the details and textures. So starting out for the streaming quality, I have it set to low. For the texture resolution, I have that set to normal. You can use low if you want to, but the game looks kind of muddy with it on low, so I use normal. The texture filter anisotropic, I have set to normal. The particle quality, high. Bullet impacts and sprays. Make sure that you disable this because I'm sure you've seen some clips on Twitter where people will spray paint a person on the wall whenever they're camping in a corner, and if someone runs through the door, they shoot the spray paint. If you have this disabled, you won't see that. So if someone spray paints something on the wall, you won't even see it at all. So make sure you disable this just so you don't get world starred. For the tessellation, I have that set to near. For the on-demand texture streaming, I have that disabled. For the shadow map resolution, make sure you set this to low. Whenever you have it set to ultra, it definitely hurts FPS and it makes no difference in the game at all. So make sure you have that set to low. The cast, sun shadows, and spot shadows, I have those disabled. The particle quality, I have that set to high. You can use ultra. It doesn't really affect too much FPS unless there's, you know, a lot of explosions on your screen. So I have that set to high. Make sure you have ray tracing disabled because ray tracing isn't really a thing in Warzone just yet. So make sure you have that disabled. Filmic strength, I have set to 0. NVIDIA DLSS. Make sure you have this disabled because this does not work in Warzone properly. I don't really know how to explain it too much, but if you have this enabled, basically your bullets won't go where you're aiming, if that makes sense. But make sure you have this disabled because it does not work properly in Warzone right now. For anti-aliasing, I have that set to off. A lot of people have it set to the SMAA 2X or the Filmic 2X. I have it disabled. I just think it makes the game look a little bit better. Depth of field, have that disabled. Motion blur, all that stuff, disabled, all that. So that wraps up the graphics section. Let's head over to audio. So for starters, for the audio mix, I use boost high. I know a lot of people have been rocking boost low lately, but I don't know if it's my headset or what, but whenever I use boost low, the game sounds like absolute trash. So if the game doesn't sound too good to you and you're not using boost high, make sure you throw boost high on. It might help. Master volume I have set to 100. Music volume I have set to 0 because I hate whenever I'm in game and it's like end game and they start playing some like dramatic music and I can't hear footsteps and stuff. So make sure you have the music set to 0. Dialogue I have set to 20 just because I kind of like to hear the operator quips whenever you kill people and stuff. I think they're kind of funny, and it's low enough to where it doesn't really interfere with footsteps or anything. Effects volume, make sure you have that to 100. All this stuff isn't really too important. Juggernaut music, have that set to enabled. I don't really know what all that stuff is. Another important setting, mono audio. If you have this set to enabled, make sure you turn that off because that can definitely throw off your hearing and footstep audio and all that stuff. So make sure you have that disabled. Voice chat, have that enabled, obviously. Open mic recording threshold 0. Microphone volume 69, you know what I mean? All that stuff, not too important. So let's head over to the controller setting now. I'm sure a lot of people want to know what my controller settings are. I play on flipped. I know a lot of people don't play on flipped. What flipped means is I actually aim and shoot with my L1 and R1. I know a lot of people don't play like that. They use the triggers, but L1 and R1, it feels more responsive to me, so that's what I use. I use default flipped. For my dead zone, I rock a 0.03 dead zone. That's just what I've been used to, so that's what I use. I don't really change it too much. Sensitivity. So sensitivity is definitely subjective. A lot of people on controller rock a lower sensitivity. Like I know a lot of people use 6.6. I've always been a high sense player, so I just feel more comfortable on a higher sense. So what I use is 1010. So maybe try that out if you're having a little bit trouble aiming. I always mess around with my sensitivity, but I never really go up or down more than 1 or 2 points. But 1010 is a sweet spot for me. For my low zoom and my high zoom, I have that set to 1.27. That's just what feels more comfortable for me. Like I said, all this is kind of subjective, so don't, you know, copy me verbatim. This is just what I use. So for the aim response curve type, I have heard from so many people that dynamic is definitely the best to run. So that's what I run. I definitely feel like aim assist is the best with dynamic, so that's what I use. I have controller vibration turned off. I hate controller vibration. If you use that, you're weird. Aim assist I have set to standard. Make sure that you have scale aim assist with FOV. Make sure you have that enabled because it definitely will help you with long range engagements whenever you're using aim assist. The weapon mount activation have to ADS plus melee. Aim down sight behavior, hold, all that equipment, hold. Make sure you're using contextual tap. I know that's kind of a noob setting if you're not using it, but if you aren't using it, make sure that you have this set to contextual tab. Use /reload behavior. Make sure it's on that because if it's on tap to use or tap to hold, it'll mean whenever you're in Warzone, you'll have to hold square to pick up stuff. If you have it on contextual tap, you can just tap square and it picks it up. Armor plate behavior, I have that to apply all. And what that means is that I only have to hold triangle once and it'll put in all 3 plates. Whereas if you have it set to apply 1, you have to keep pressing triangle to put more plates in. So I have that set to apply all. And just a pro tip, if you're applying all your plates and you don't have your finger on the triangle button and someone pushes you or you need to cancel that plate animation, all you have to do is just press triangle one more time and it'll cancel the plate animation. Slide behavior I have set to tap. Auto move forward I have set to disabled. I am an automatic tac sprint user. If you are not using automatic tac sprint yet, please use automatic tac sprint. It has absolutely saved so many controllers of mine. And what this means is you don't have to press down on your analog stick to run, all you have to do is move it forward and your character will attack sprint. Make sure you set this on. If you don't have it set to on yet, I know it's going to be weird if you switch to it, but trust me, it will be better for you in the long run. So parachute auto deploy, I have that disabled just so I can land closer to the ground. Attack sprint, double tap. And yeah, that's about it for the controller settings. That's all for the settings in game. So now let's go over my NVIDIA filters to make your game look beautiful and not hurt your FPS too much. All right, so for the NVIDIA filters, now this is what Warzone looks like without any NVIDIA filters. You can see that the map looks really dull. It's very dark, very desaturated. Warzone is just, it's honestly a really ugly game, but now this is what the game looks like with the NVIDIA filters on. You can see everything is a lot more vibrant. There's a lot more brightness in the dark areas. The clarity's better. Things look sharper, and the game just looks like a completely different game with these NVIDIA filters. So here's a really good example. So this is what the game looks like in this dark corner with the NVIDIA filters off. And now here's what the game looks like with the NVIDIA filters on. So you can definitely see in the corners a lot better. The areas that are dark are a lot brighter, and it just makes everyone so much easier to see. All right, so speaking of the NVIDIA filters, let's go over the settings that I have for my filters. So to bring up the NVIDIA filter section, what you're gonna press is Alt and Z, and that will bring up the GeForce experience. This is only for NVIDIA graphics cards, so if you don't have an NVIDIA graphics card, unfortunately you can't do this, but if you do have one, you just press Alt-Z and this will come up. So you're going to go into the game filter section, and now this is where you'll find your game filters. So starting out for the first filter, all you're going to want to do is you're going to want to press this add filter button, and then you're going to want to add sharpen plus. And now these are the settings that I have for sharpen plus. For the intensity, I have it set to 30. This just makes the game a little bit more sharp. Like if I bring it up, you can see the game looks super sharp and it looks kind of weird. So I like to use it around 30% is usually the sweet spot for the intensity. And for the texture detail, of course, if you bring this up, the game becomes a lot more textured and a lot more just weird looking. So I usually put that at around like 20-ish% or so. And then next, what you guys are going to want to add is the color setting. Now going over the color setting for the tint color, I have this set to 18%. If you mess with this, it makes the tint of the game a little bit weird. So like you see, if I bring it all the way up, it adds like a reddish hue to the game. And if I bring it all the way down, it brings in like a bluish red. I usually have this around 18% or 20%. That seems to be the best for me. And now the tint intensity is, you want to make sure that this is set low, because if you even go up a little bit, you can see how your game starts to look a little strange if you put it up too high. I usually have this around 10%. That seems to be the sweet spot for me. And now for the temperature, obviously if you bring this up, it'll make your game more warmer, and if you bring it down, it'll make it cooler. I usually have this set to about -1.5. You can use your arrow keys to be a little bit more precise instead of your mouse. I have it set to -1.5. And now the vibrance. This is really important if you want to make your game look better. Like if you're doing YouTube or streaming, if you put the vibrance up, it'll make your game look a lot more appealing to the eye, because like I said, Warzone is very desaturated and very ugly. So if you turn this vibrance up, it'll make your game just a little bit more colorful and a little bit more pleasant to look at. For me, I usually have this set between 60 and 70. I usually have it right around 66 or so. And then the next filter you're going to add is the details filter. And now what you're going to want to put on is the sharpen. For me, I have this at 65%. This adds even just a little bit more sharpness to the game, just to take out some of that clarity and some of that, you know, foggy haziness. The clarity and the sharpen definitely help with that a lot. So for sharpen, usually around 60% or so. For the clarity, usually around 20% or so with the clarity. If you bring this all the way up, you can bring it all the way up and you will get more clarity out of your game, but it does make the game look a little odd to me. So I usually have this set to around, 30% or so. And now this is probably the most important setting in the NVIDIA filters, and that is the HDR toning. So if you set this down low, you can see how it makes the map super, super dark. And if you raise it up, it brings out those shadows a ton. Now, I know a lot of people usually put this on 100%, but I think it's a little bit too much. I usually go around 75 to 80%. That seems to work well for me. So there you go, man. Once again, this is the game with the NVIDIA filters off, and then this is the game with the NVIDIA filters on. So there you go, man. Those are absolutely all of my settings. We went over controller settings, graphic settings, audio, the NVIDIA filters. We went over the whole nine. So I hope you guys liked today's video. If you did like it, please drop a like on the video. It'd help out the channel a lot. And also let me know if you want to see more videos like this in the future, more tips and tricks style videos, because I do enjoy making these. And if it helps people, I'd be glad to make them. But with all that being said, man, I'm going to get out of here. I hope you guys have a beautiful day. I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.